So in last week's video, we had a look at the rules surrounding online gaming in China, both the existing rules and the more recent proposed rules that recently really took a hammer to the stock prices of Tencent and Netease. Now, most of these rules were aimed at preventing addictive gaming habits within children, but a lot of it spills over to the adult audience as well. So following on from that video, I began to wonder, how compatible are these rules for us in the Western world, whether that be in the UK, Europe, the United States, or elsewhere? It is inevitable that at least one of these rules gets implemented globally. So naturally, I ended up with the typical YouTuber ranking table, throwing together some basic cards to represent these individual rules. So before I get started, if you happen to enjoy this kind of content, please let me know by hitting that like and subscribe button. It really does help me out and lets me know what kind of content you guys want me to watch. So anyway, let's get on with the video, shall we? So here we have our ranking table. Do pardon me for not doing it properly on the website, but I didn't want to create an account on a third-party website just for this video. Maybe in the future, but in the meantime, we are using LibreOffice to pull off this particular ranking table. So we are going to start off with this one, ID login. This is definitely, unfortunately, going in the D tier. Now, of course, it's the D tier. If I had any more tiers on here, it'd be F, but I don't want to have too many tiers on here. Wherever we're going, it's going to the bottom. The internet is all about anonymity in many, many cases, and requiring people to log in with their formal ID just to prove that they're not an 8-year-old logging in. Yeah, going for the ID is a little bit too much. It works over in China, but ID login, that would never sit well with us in the West, unfortunately. I mean, I can only use the United Kingdom as an example, but there's an online safety bill that's been going in and out of Parliament for years now, which would require when you go online onto certain adult websites for you to log in with your ID. Every time that goes into Parliament, it gets broadcast all over the news, and then it gets forgotten about again because nobody likes the idea of using their personal ID to log into third-party websites, whatever they may be. So yeah, this is going to the bottom of the tier. Now, next up, we have facial recognition. Unfortunately, we're seeing a theme here. Don't worry, I'm not going to be putting everything in the D tier, otherwise I would have made all of these little cards a little bit smaller, well, a fair bit smaller. But again, having facial recognition built into games to identify if we're of the correct age, it's not something any of us would agree to. It's in the same tier as using our IDs for all the same reasons as I've just discussed. Now, next up, we have timed sessions. This is an interesting one. I can see the need for having timed sessions. It's just how it gets implemented. Because if you were to say, okay, you can boot up this game for 1 hour and you need a half-hour cooldown before you can go back into it again. Not all content in video games can be completed within 1 hour. For example, if I attended a CTA in the game Eve Echoes, those things can last multiple hours. Just imagine your player base getting kicked 1 hour into a CTA because their gameplay time has elapsed. They can't log in for another 30 minutes as the game is basically telling you you have to go and get your toilet break. So depending on how it's implemented, this could be an interesting one. As an automated process, I have to put that as a C tier. I'm clicking on the wrong window now, guys. This is very bad of me. So I'm going to put it in the C tier. It doesn't impede upon our privacy, but unfortunately, it is dependent on facial recognition or ID login to be able to identify if the timer is even necessary. So this is where, unfortunately, children are concerned, we just have to rely on parents actually having a level of control over their kids with regards to how much time they spend on the games. Now, in the case of mobile gaming, the only solution there is to give kids a mobile that cannot play these online games. So yeah, the only solution there would be to give kids, for when they're out and about, a regular traditional mobile phone that is not a smartphone. I still have this traditional mobile phone, this Samsung, with an actual keypad on it. Granted, I don't use it anymore, but phones like this still exist. So if you want to get kids away from mobile gaming, just having kids reachable with a traditional mobile phone, it's not the end of the world. And that would be one control measure to prevent kids from playing too much mobile games. But anyway, let's not go on too much about the timed sessions solution here. So we'll move on to our next one after that quick little ramble about good old-fashioned phones with buttons on them. So next up, we have warn large spenders. So this one is as simple as it sounds. Large spenders get a big warning saying you've probably spent too much on the game as it is in this allotted period of time, whether it's the past hour or 24 hours. Maybe the game says we want you to take a break. Do you really want to spend this much? But it won't physically prevent someone from spending money. So whales that have a certain amount that they're willing to spend without compromising their bank account will be able to completely click away from this and carry on purchasing. Whereas other problem spenders that are actively trying to control their spending habits, that spending cycle might actually be broken by these warnings. So for that reason alone, I'm going to put that in the A tier because it gives a little bit more control to regular people. It helps them manage themselves a little bit better. Again, it doesn't do a massive amount, but it's something that's there. It helps with the psychology of video games as it is, because they're very manipulative. They try to get you to spend as much money as possible, these online games. So having something that breaks that manipulation, breaks that cycle within the game itself is always going to be a good thing. So next up we have banning high value purchases. And I have really butchered apparently the spelling of purchases. Wow, okay, how did I not notice that earlier? Anyway, my really bad spelling aside, the banning of high value purchases I quite like the idea of, because I do not like with Eve Echoes as an example, there are items within the game that once you've purchased a number of items, you can get this one high value item after, let's say you buy 30 loot boxes, and after 30 loot boxes you're guaranteed to get this one high value item. And those 30 loot boxes are going to cost you $200, let's say. I would not be willing to spend $200 on an in-game item when I could buy dozens of indie games for that $200. And it's just something I've never been comfortable with. Again, if this in-game item was $5, I would have probably bought it 30 times over by now. And the company Netease would have already got that same amount of money from me. But banning high value purchases would incentivize games companies to actually create much more affordable purchases within the game and not make these things so far out of reach. So ban high value purchases, I'm all for that. It gives you a little bit more spending money to shop around with other games as well. So we'll move on now into the realm of manipulation again, as I alluded to with the warning large spenders, and that is with login rewards. Now, login rewards come in various forms, whether that's a battle pass or just the regular login rewards. These are designed to create that loop, that cycle whereby you're always logging into the game. Your attention is always being pulled back towards the game. So getting rid of login rewards, I should have written ban login rewards as opposed to just login rewards in general. But getting rid of login rewards, I'd be all up for that. Because as it stands at the moment with games like Eve Echoes, I might actually log into the game to actually play it and engage with the content once every 3 or 4 days. Because that's how often I actually have the time to play the game. For the rest of the week, I'm just logging in to claim the login rewards so I don't fall behind. And it just constantly occupies a space in my brain. Every day on the walk into work, I have to dedicate 5 minutes to logging in on my various characters and just pressing all these buttons. It's completely unnecessary. So I would be more than happy to get rid of login rewards. But all they are is a manipulation tool. They aren't actually influenced by spending or anything like that. So I'm going to put that in the A tier for now. So lastly, we have loot boxes, the banning of loot boxes. And naturally, I'm going to put that straight at the top in the S tier with banning high value purchases. Now in Eve Echoes, high value purchases and loot boxes kind of go together, because in this particular game, to get the high value purchases, you have to buy a number of these loot boxes, like 30 or 60 loot boxes depending on the event, in order to get that guaranteed high value purchase reward. So these two things are literally stuck together. There's no way of separating them at the moment in Eve Echoes. And of course, loot boxes, we all know what they're about. They're highly addictive, they result in you spending a ton of money, and they're basically gambling. Only when you win, you don't get money back, you just get an in-game item. And in countries such as the United Kingdom, every time we consider looking at it and tackling it, nothing happens. We just get a little bit too touchy over it. We go, oh well, it might upset the gaming industry, so we're not going to touch it. We're just going to say, create some standards that are voluntary and we don't have to come up with them ourselves. The gaming industry can come up with them. When the Western world is moving that slowly with regards to loot boxes, I kind of wish that we just go in the path that China are considering with regards to just banning them outright, because they are addictive and they just burn holes in your wallets. They are unnecessary. And as I alluded to earlier, there are people like myself that will spend money if you got rid of loot boxes and just replaced them with honest transactions whereby you knew what you were buying. Because as it stands at the moment, I would never buy a single loot box in a game. But unfortunately, people are manipulated into purchasing loot boxes. But anyway, that is all I've got queued up for this particular video. Of course, there's probably a fair bit that I missed because I always manage to miss something in a video. So let me know in the comments section below what other regulations or rules are going on in China that we think could or could not be ported across to the Western world. But I'm going to cut the video there. Thanks again for watching, everyone. If you haven't already, feel free to hit that subscribe button, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Thank you again.